All right. Good evening, everyone. To everyone who's joining, we thank you and welcome you to the Learning Event Series 2.0. This Learning Event Series aims to give a venue to thresh out the relevant issues and concerns surrounding the Dumaguete Reclamation Project. So just to emphasize, you've read the rules, the House rules for tonight, but I'd like to remind you that questions will be entertained at the end of the talk. And if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box only. All right. Tonight's series is brought to you by the Dumaguete City Lions Club International and Rotary Club South. Also, we would actually like to thank everyone who has participated in organizing and even in sharing this event to others, because the purpose is to actually get an informed and engaged citizenry. And I think this is what we're trying to do tonight. So without further ado, we would like to welcome our speaker for this evening. He will be talking about the background of the MOU. Our speaker is Honorable Agustin Miguel Tincho Perdices. He is a Dumaguete councilor. He is the only son of the late Governor Tuting and Jean Perdices. He is an economics graduate of Ateneo de Manila University. Being part of the council, he will talk about the legislative process relating to the questioned Memorandum of Understanding, which is the foundation of this whole issue that we're talking about tonight. So, good evening, Mr. Councilor.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening to everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some thoughts with regards to the MOU. And I'd like to first and foremost, of course, thank the Lions Club of Dumaguete and the Rotary Club of Dumaguete South. So, in as much as the topic for tonight revolves around how we are now, how the existence of the Memorandum of Understanding has come about, I guess I will start with a narration of the timeline on what has happened in our past few sessions that has brought about the existence of this MOU. So, first of all, let me start that everything started on July 7th, a Wednesday regular session, wherein part of our agenda was a letter coming from our city legal officer requesting that the council grant, through a resolution, grant authority to the mayor to enter into a memorandum of agreement with one Cuerpo Incorporated for the purpose of a PPP, unsolicited project, or with a title better known as the proposed 174-hectare reclamation for mixed-use 5G ready smart Dumaguete City development with coastal wastewater treatment facility, shoreline slope, wave protection, etc. Okay, it's a long title. The request was for an authority to sign a memorandum of agreement, but the attached document actually, last July 7, was a draft joint venture agreement. Now, you can actually, mix match the two. Memorandum of agreement, joint venture agreement, some say it's the same kind of document. Now, why was the city council asked for a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign in behalf of the city? well, this is one of the functions of the city council. No, any kind form of documentation needed to be signed by the city mayor on behalf of the city needs prior approval from the city council. Deed of assignment, deed of donation, memorandum of agreements, all legal documents that needs the signature of the mayor needs a supporting resolution from the city council. Okay. So this was the first time, as far as I know, that the city council has formally been informed of this proposed reclamation project via unsolicited an unsolicited proposal from a private company. And as far as I know, this proposed project will also be the very first PPP project of Dumaguete City if it were to pass all requirements. Many things can happen when a request for authority is asked. Some requests are automatically granted because the nature of the document is either a deed of donation or something that everybody is familiar with already. All councilors are familiar with. But there are times also that requests coming from the executive department are referred to either a standing committee for further action, or we as a whole ask for clarification on the document, invite either city legal or anybody else that will have knowledge about the document. So last July 7, since the one who put this on the floor was the chairman of the Committee on Rules, Honorable Councilor Michael Bandal, my first question to him then was, what is his intention on this request coming from our city legal office? Was he planning to have it approved that day, or would it be forwarded to a committee or any other action? Councilor Bandal then indicated that he would be making a motion to approve the request. In as much that some of us councilors felt that this is the first time that this kind of a request has been asked from the city, meaning to say first time that it involves a PPP proposed project. And this is something new for some of us councilors. We felt that we needed more time to study the documents, find out what the council should do. First, I mean, you say, should we hold a public hearing? Because, like I said, this is the first time na there is a proposed PPP project in front of us. So basically, what happened that Wednesday, July 7th, we asked for time, for deferment, no, on action on this request. But, well, we very well know already that the motion to approve was made, duly seconded, and a vote, since we objected, some of us objected, a vote was called for, and the majority voted to grant the request. So what happened next? Well, what happened next, not in the council, but in Dumaguete, people started giving their reactions, so forth and so forth. I will not talk about that because that is outside the realm of the city council. Now, the next session, July 14. On July 14, another document, another request was sent to the Honorable Vice Mayor, Carissa Tolentino Maxino, this time from the city mayor himself. In this document, the mayor said that he has not signed the joint venture agreement that was subject of the authority granted him, and he has received numerous protests due to lack of information, he says. So he requested that the council approve some changes that he himself wanted made. First and foremost, the first change that he asked to be made was that the word joint venture agreement no longer be used in the document and instead use the words Memorandum of Understanding. That's why now we are talking of a existing document, MOU. Then there were other changes that he wanted introduced in the context of the document itself, additional well-asked clauses, changes, certain change, not a few, around 9 changes, no, on the document itself. Now, since this request from the mayor was brought to the whole body, we first saw it fit that the earlier authority granted the mayor to sign the joint venture agreement had to be withdrawn by the council. So there was a motion. The motion was, what was that? Motion for reconsideration on the earlier authority granted, and that motion passed. In other words, the earlier authority to sign the JVA was withdrawn. But together with the letter was, of course, the request to grant him a new authority to sign the MOU. And aside from the authority to grant him, aside from the request granting him authority to sign the new MOU, he also sought from the city council a resolution expressing no objection to the project. And third, he also sought an authority for him, the mayor, to apply in behalf of the city with the Philippine Reclamation Authority a letter by issuing a letter of intent. Well, what happened during that session, July 14, we felt that there were things that were not proper anymore. Number one, we felt that how can we grant a resolution expressing no objection wherein clearly for the past 7 days through social media, through letters, official letters of positions given by different organizations, there is objection to this proposed PPP project of the city. At the same time, we felt that the need for a public consultation is now even more important because of the realization that there is objection, there is lack of information. So again, some of us councilors wanted to propose to the rest of our colleagues that we not act on this request first. As a matter of fact, I remember that July 14, Councilor Erames even made it known that the proposed amendments, changes to the earlier document are not known to most of us councilors because we were not furnished a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding. Because that document, the attachment, together with the letter from the mayor, was submitted only at 8:20 in the morning of July 14, the day of our regular session. So the Secretariat was not able to furnish everybody a copy of the new document. And this is what Councilor Erames insisted. How can we go through the new document? How can we study it? And how can we decide how we will vote on it if we do not even know its contents? Well, because it looked like it will still be approved that day, the three requests of the mayor, some of us councilors, the minority councilors, already stated that we will oppose any move to grant a new authority to the mayor to sign the MOU. We will also oppose to the resolution of no objection coming from the City Council, and we will also oppose the resolution for the mayor to submit already a letter of intent to the Philippine Reclamation Authority. But of course, since in any legislative body, it is a numbers game, we did not have the numbers to block any approval. So this was then approved. Now, also during that day, we were already questioning the MOU. Is the MOU actually the what you call the PPP contract itself? Different points of view were given. Some said that this is not yet the PPP contract per se, because the PPP contract will come after approvals from the national agencies will be attained. Only then will the proposed PPP contract be submitted to the council for its approval. In as much as we had no numbers, so the mayor was granted his three requests. Now come last Wednesday, last week, July 21. Because after having gone through now the documents submitted, the members of the minority group in the City Council last July 21 really believed that the MOU is in actuality already something like the PPP contract. Why? My understanding of an MOU is that an MOU is signed by two parties when there is the meeting of minds. An MOU generally would be understanding that two parties or three parties want to do something together. I even checked that an MOU generally said is not a legally binding contract or legally binding document, because usually an MOU is very general in nature on the contents of an MOU. But it also says the minute the MOU is very specific as to responsibilities each party has, it's very specific on what are the duties of each party involved in the MOU. And it is also very specific on the gains that each party will have out of whatever activity it will engage in, meaning to say division of spoils, benefits among each other, then the MOU contract now becomes a binding legal contract to the parties. Because of this, July 21, we were insisting that this MOU is actually already, if not similar, it is now generally the PPP contract. Of course, again, including we had our city legal brought back to the city council his comments. The city legal officer, of course, insisted no, the MOU is not the PPP contract. But because we felt that it was, we now asked, we now made a motion for reconsideration on first, the resolution of no objection. Why? We felt that for the council to issue a resolution of no objection, there must be, it is like saying that the council finds the city, its people are not objecting to this contract. So meaning to say, the council has conducted a public consultation. But clearly, the council has not. And a resolution of no objection by law requires that we hold public consultation. Remember, in our internal rules, a motion for reconsideration can be made a motion by any member who voted with the majority. Now, we, councilors, the four of us, we did not vote with the majority. So in the beginning, you would think that there is no way that we can motion for a motion for reconsideration. But our rules, internal rules, also state that if it is a question of law, anybody, any councilor, whether you voted in favor or against, can make such a move. So that is why Councilor Arbas made that motion. And happy to say, maybe the majority were convinced, yeah, there seems to be a misstep on the issuance of the resolution of no objection. They voted in favor to adopt the motion for reconsideration. So now, July 21's regular session, the resolution of no objection was withdrawn. Next, Councilor Arbas again moved that we also reconsider the motion, the authority granted to the mayor to sign the MOU. Again, Councilor Arbas and myself, we made the argument that this was because of a question of law, wherein our point was a PPP contract has to undergo public consultation. That is clearly stipulated in the PPP ordinance. The problem is there were different opinions on this, because the city legal said this is not yet the PPP contract, the MOU is not the PPP contract. Majority of the councilors did not feel that the motion to reconsider was proper, because they believe the argument of the city legal that the PPP contract will actually follow after certain things have been done. So that motion for reconsideration was lost, it was denied. Well, after that, there were difference in points of view. There were some debates among councilors, but after that, the session adjourned. Now I will get to what happened this morning. July 28th, our regular session again. Councilor Arbas and Councilor Rames, during privilege hour, gave slide presentations on our arguments on why certain irregularities happened in the approval of the MOU. Basically, the minority group feels that, number one, the MOU document is not needed. Because now I will talk about the PPP ordinance of Dumaguete City, or the PPP code of 2021. That ordinance was approved early February 2021, and that ordinance became effective, signed by the city mayor late February 2021. In that ordinance, there are steps given that must be followed for any PPP project to progress. That PPP ordinance gives so many steps, so many requirements. And one of the major requirements, because all through these 3 weeks, a lot of reasons given to us councilors by other colleagues that why, even by city, why it is not yet time to hold public hearing, is that the feasibility study, the detailed plans, the PPP contract has not yet been made, has not yet been submitted by the proponent. Meaning to say, these are things that the proponent will still do because there is now an MOU between the city and the private proponent. But we went through the PPP ordinance. For a unsolicited PPP project, it is clearly stated there that one of the things required to be submitted by the proponent is one, he has to submit, hold on. Okay. He has to submit an unsolicited proposal accompanied by a feasibility study or project study and a draft PPP contract to the city for the projected PPP project. Simply said, they said the MOU is not yet the PPP contract, but step one for a unsolicited proposal is the proponent, mean to say the private company, has to submit to the city a draft PPP contract. So that got us wondering, does a PPP contract already exist or not? Because we've been told so many times that this is still to follow. In our PPP ordinance, there is no mention of the need of an MOU or a memorandum of agreement. And the only time it talks about a JVA is when the mode of the PPP is a joint venture agreement. But clearly, it states that the proponent, private proponent, should submit to the city as step one, a draft PPP contract. Why? Why is there a need for the proponent to submit a draft PPP contract? Because in the draft PPP contract, which can still be subjected to negotiation by the city with the proponent, it will indicate every single small detail that the project that will be included in the project and whose responsibilities this will be. Things that you find in the MOU. Now, once they have been, the draft PPP contract is submitted to the city, the PPPSC, means a public partnership project selection committee, will go through those documents, all those documents, and if they seem it fit, they will elevate it to the mayor, because then, with the approval of the mayor of the PPP contract and all other documents, this will undergo a Swiss challenge for any third party who may be interested on the same project with the same details and try to outbid the original proponent. Now, through the narration of our city legal, he said that the there were negotiations done by the PPSC, or the, I'll just, for short, I'll just call him the selection committee. The selection committee had negotiations with the proponent, and he indicated certain days in the month of February this year. And then after review and everything, sometime, I'm not so sure, sometime April this year, this project was subjected to a Swiss challenge. Now, this morning, I questioned, if there is no PPP contract yet, what did they subject to a Swiss challenge? Because in our ordinance, it says the city mayor shall approve all tendered documents, including the draft contract, the draft PPP contract, before the publication of the invitation for comparative proposals, or in other words, the Swiss challenge. If there is no contract, proposed contract, what can a third party evaluate and see if he is interested on that project and make a counter proposal or counter bid? So this afternoon, we were trying to convince our co-members in the city council that there seems to be so many lapses that happen, not only in the part of the city council, but more especially on the part of the screening committee, because it appears that the screening committee did not follow to the letter our very own PPP ordinance. Other things that we pointed out this morning was even the membership of the PPP screening committee was not complete. Part of the membership is a councilor duly authorized by the city as our representative to the screening committee via resolution. Councilor Lani Lamon is now the one sitting in that body. But during the time of the negotiations, during the time that it was going to be subjected to a Swiss challenge, Councilor Lani Ramon was not yet appointed as our representative via resolution. That resolution happened April 2021. Also, in social media, we found out that one or two of the supposed members of the screening committee representing civil society groups were never involved in any of the meetings of the screening committee. They were only included as members later on when everything has been said and done. Another point that we brought up this morning was in the section of rationale of a PPP project, whether solicited or unsolicited. It states there that the project to be pursued should be, I'll just check on the actual words. Section. Okay. The actual words in our PPP ordinance of 2021, section 4, which is rationale for PPP. PPPs, meaning say public-private partnership contracts, project, should be adopted to address a pressing and urgent or critical public need. Then I'll paraphrase, a public need that is urgent, critical, and which the city on its own cannot provide. Therefore, the city will go about it to provide that kind of a service to the general public via PPP. Now I ask them, what is the pressing and urgent and critical public need of supposed helipad, yacht club, fish port, residential condominiums, and so forth? Things that supposedly are included in a mixed use. So right there and then, I was asking the body, we have to restart all of this because there are a lot of, since this is our, and I don't blame anybody. Like I said, this is the first PPP proposed project being made to the city. And it is the first, because it's the first, and it is still by mode of unsolicited proposal. Though we are supposed to know all these details because we crafted the PPP ordinance, you know, it is advised that this being the first, we should go slowly on things. Because mistakes like this may cost not only the city, but may cause problems in the future about any other PPP contract that the city will get involved with. Well, up to now, we are still hoping that the city council sees it a need to step back, no, to reassess, change things that we already approved so that we can take a better look. There are so many, that is not the subject of the MOU, so I will not talk about other questions, the numerous questions about the proponent, other questions about Chinese involvement. But for me personally, things of this nature are red flags on its by itself. And not being a lawyer, anytime there's a red flag, you stop, pause, take a minute, and see what this is all about. What are the possible consequences? And that is basically what the minority councilors are asking, because we have seen a lot of red flags. And since we, number one, are supposed to be the representatives of the people of Dumaguete, something this big, something this sensitive, reclamation, a very sensitive topic, we feel that it is, we are duty bound to bring this thing back to the people. Get as much comments, reactions, suggestion for or against on this matter. Because this is not an ordinary memorandum of agreement. This is not an ordinary memorandum of understanding. This is an undertaking, if ever it pushes through, that will affect the lives of each and every Dumagueteñon for years and decades to come. And we, I feel, as a body, cannot say, well, we took everything with a sense of regularity and we saw that things can be better for us without really trying to answer as much questions as we can. That's why up to today, I am hopeful that the councilors, the good mayor, can see the the worries that this kind of an activity brings to our people. And maybe as an ending note, what is very regretful, what is very hurting is that because of this, friends, families, colleagues are now sometimes saying things to each other that they normally would not, if not because of this. And I don't believe any project is worth creating all this negativity among fellow Dumagueteños. Thank you very much for hearing me out, and I hope I'll be able to answer any questions that you may have with regards to this matter.
All right, thank you, Councilor Perdices. We appreciate the timeline that you gave, especially a rundown of what happened within this month of July. Also, we have questions that have been sent in advance and some questions here that were typed in the question and answer box. So we're going to go to that. But before we jump into that, I'd just like to clarify. So are you saying, Councilor, na the first time you saw the MOU or the JVA was in July 7? Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the first time we saw any form of the documentation or request regarding this proposed project.
Okay, and so in relation to that, meaning when all of these things were happening, diba, the Swiss challenge was in sometime in April, end of April, and it ended end of May. The rest of, I mean, you did not know that this was going on.
Yes, we did not know. These were activities done by the PPP selection committee.
Okay.
This is part of their responsibilities. But supposedly, if there was a member already from the city council in the selection committee, then maybe we would have been given some sort of preview on what's going on already. Because frankly speaking, we never knew that there was ever a unsolicited proposal from anybody. We never knew that there was a reclamation project in the onset. We never knew. And definitely we never knew about any memorandum of agreement or joint venture agreement prior to July 7th.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think that's important to note because, as you say, today is only July 28th, and I would like to say that the attention that the issue has gotten is very encouraging. And so we thank you, and we thank the other members who have spoken up also in behalf of the people. And now we're going to read from the questions that have been sent in advance. Most of these are anonymous, but I will read out names when available. All right. Okay. So there's a question here, why the City Council did not have a consultation to all sectors before giving the mayor authority to sign the MOU, when in fact the project has a bigger impact to the environment and the next generation's future. And maybe in relation to this, there are other questions that ask, when does the consultation need to start?
Okay. To answer the question why the city council has never held a public consultation is because we were voted down. That is exactly what we wanted, to conduct public consultation before granting the mayor any form of authority, because we felt that it is important to get the feedback from the general public. Now, why we were voted down, why majority of the councilors did not feel that need to consult first, well, I cannot speak for them, no, but I hear some of them saying, well, the consultation will come after we apply with the PRA. The consultation will be done after we apply for the ECC clearance from the DNR. So some of them are saying there will be public consultation, but that is after we already start applying with the national agencies, which is contrary to my personal belief and the belief of three or four other councilors, no? That consultation should be done day one.
Right.
Consultation should have been the first activity
Mm.
scheduled by the city council when the letter coming from the city legal was given to us asking for an authority for the mayor. That, I believe, should have been our first activity, first step. But, you know, each has his own opinion, so
Mm.
happen.
Right, thank you. Actually, you know what, Mr. Perdices, if you look at the 2021 PPP ordinance, no, in Section 3, I was very pleased to see actually that Section 3B, the
Yeah.
operative principle of this ordinance, it says the general welfare and public good shall always be promoted, and that transparency, public accountability, and social accountability mechanisms and approaches shall be integrated in PPPs from inception to implementation. So
Correct.
my question siguro is, what do you consider inception? Because the questions that are coming out now, they're saying a lot of questions here actually touch on the public consultations or the so-called info drives that are now ongoing.
Yes, no, inception. When the project enters your mind, enter the mind of whoever, that for me is inception.
Right.
When the proposal was first submitted to any official of government, that is inception.
Mm.
So that should be have right away been disseminated to the
Right.
general public.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
we agree on that. I agree with you. No, that is why. That's why I do not subscribe to the argument that the consultation will happen when we apply with the DNR. Means they're saying that when the DNR tells us to consult the public, that's when we'll consult.
Mm.
I thought that when we have something in mind, especially something this sensitive, we consult even before we apply with the national. Why do we have to bring this to the national level if we cannot get our people support, the people to agree that this is good for the city, this is good for everybody? If we get that kind of agreement, then let's go proceed and apply with the PRA and with the DNR with the requirements. And actually, what we found out now today, the Philippine Reclamation Authority will not even ask us to consult.
Right.
Because one of the documents we are supposed to submit to them
No
is
objection.
no objection. So meaning to
Right.
say that presupposes that you already consulted.
Correct.
There's no objection. That's why
Correct.
you're applying.
Correct. Yeah, so I think it would be safe to say actually to all these questions no, on consultation, what's going on now is after the fact because there's already a document that lays out the plans and basically has the details hashed out. And I think I do know I do think that inception is from the very genesis, no, the very time you do get an idea. So yeah, I hope that satisfies the people who asked about these consultations. The next question is the proposed project in accordance to the comprehensive land use plan of the city, if there is any?
Well, the latest comprehensive land use plans that I came across definitely does not include an island 30 meters away from our coast. So if you ask me, it is not part of our comprehensive land use plan. Our comprehensive land use plan is basically how many hectares do we allocate for commercial, how many hectares for residential, how many hectares do we keep as agricultural, things of that scope, no? And definitely when that plan was made, it was made before my time, there was no one talking about any island off the coast of Dumaguete City. So I doubt it. It is not. I would say it is not part.
Okay, thank you. We have another question here, and this was answered partially by your talk, though, but I'll read it anyway, as with all the other questions. Is the council's decision based on a scientific study on its socio-economic and environmental impact? Or is there any study made prior to such decision?
Number one, if there is a study made, it has not been made known to us. Nothing has been shown us. Nothing has been handed to us. What I hear and what I believe is happening is, this is my take, okay? I can be wrong, but this is my take. The MOU or the JVA or the MOA is some sort of protection for the proponent. If you make those kinds of scientific study, you make the social, environmental, economic study, and you make it well. Then when you make an environmental impact study, when you make all these studies, and when you make all the detailed plans, this will cost money. My take on this, and I made it known during one of our sessions, is these documents that we are granting the mayor to sign in behalf of the city seems to be as an assurance to the proponent that when he starts spending money to do all these studies, he is assured that the city will do everything it can so that this project will happen. Because part of the documentation is the city will help in the consultation, the city will help, actually not help, be the one to apply to PRA and to the DNR for all the permits required. So meaning to say, I'm thinking now as a businessman, the private company probably feels that I need some assurance. But our PPP ordinance does not guarantee any insurance or assurance to any private company who wishes to get involved in a PPP project. We give no assurance. We should not give any assurance. So, as far as I know, there are no studies. We are asking for studies, but there are none, as far as I know.
Right. I do recall it has been reiterated that I guess a narrative is that the consultations will happen after the studies are given. That's one thing I've heard.
Yeah, one thing I heard from our city legal is that how can we do consultations now if our people have questions, we don't have the studies, what will we tell them? But the point is, when the proponent first approached the city, he should have had those studies already. He
Yeah.
should have prepared that beforehand, before submitting a proposal. Because those are the things that this screening committee has to study and take into consideration.
Correct. Right. I do understand. You pointed that out. You have 3 points that you pointed out there that goes against the very ordinance, no? The 2021 ordinance. That was section 4, no pressing need. And then you have section 14, the problem with the screening committee, and section 18, the competitive challenge. And it seems that in stage 1 of the competitive challenge, the PSP is required to submit the proposal, the unsolicited proposal, accompanied by a feasibility or project study and draft PPP contract.
Right.
So those are the 2 things that should have accompanied the unsolicited proposal. So
Right.
thank you for clarifying that. The next question here is why do we need to reclaim when there is still land available for these establishments?
Well, I don't feel we need to reclaim. But I guess if you ask City Hall, our chief executive, number one, what I heard from him in social media and is that, well, what I heard from him is like, he said things like only 5 families own the tracts of land in Dumaguete. It's very hard to gather so much property together, and that the city has no money to buy properties inland. But my take on that is, since this proposed project, the city will not spend. It is the private contractor supposedly who will do all the spending. So why not the private contractor negotiate with landowners here inland if he wants to put up those kinds of project here? Whoever owns properties in Manila, in Mangnao, or in Bantayan, maybe for the right price, they will sell what they have to. I don't see the logic on saying that the city has no money. In the first place, it's not the city that's going to put up supposedly this island. It is the private company. The city will just have a so-called share.
Right. Okay, understood. Another question that we have here is in Bisaya, no? Nganong wala man nagpresentar si EM Cuerpo Inc. sa ilahang unsolicited proposal sa publiko. So in English, why didn't EM Cuerpo present this unsolicited proposal to the public?
We will have to ask EM Cuerpo. That is correct. This is their proposal. They should be the ones presenting it to the public. A lot of us believe it is not supposed to be the mayor trying to sell this project to the constituents, to our constituents. It should be EM Cuerpo. They're the ones who came up with this idea. They're the ones who proposed this. They're the ones saying they're willing to do all the spending. They're the ones who should show themselves to the public and sell this idea to the public, not the mayor. Because as city government, we should be neutral on this and analyze it. Is it good for everybody in the city? Is it good for the general public? And PM Cuerpo should sell it to the city of official dome and to the general public. That's true. In addition, no, Councilor Bandal and Vice Mayor Carissa, we're gonna introduce a resolution requiring Cuerpo to answer some questions, but because of some things that happened, that resolution was not taken up in today's session.
Right. Actually, there was a follow-up to that to that question, I think from the same person. Asa man sa ordinansa sa Dumaguete nga ang mayor mismo ang mupresentar o mukumbinsar sa mga tao na maayo ang hanyag ni EM Cuerpo Inc. That may be rhetorical.
Actually, it is our position that it is not even the mayor who's supposed to be conducting public hearings. That is supposed to be the job of the city council. The city council will be the one to give final approvals to any contract. So that it is now the job of the city council to present this contract to the people, get their comments. It is the city council who should approach the people, not the mayor. The mayor is the executive. Once the contract is signed, if there is something that the city has to do based on the contract, he should execute. But the crafting of the draft contract is not even supposed to be done by the city. It's supposed to be done by the proponent. And we are supposed to review it. And once we review it, present it to the people.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There's a question here, which I'm going to read, but I honestly also think that you might beg off from answering, but to air out what was written by the person who asked this question. It is Honorable Perdices. Is this a political stunt executed by the mayor to leave his name in the books?
Is this a political stunt by the mayor? I hope not.
Right.
I want to believe that the mayor still believes that he is doing the best he can for the city. I want to believe that. I don't want to think ill of anyone. It is not of nature, no. So I don't want to think so.
Yes, thank you. Next, how come the majority gave the approval to allow the mayor to sign the MOU without studying it? Or maybe is it even safe to assume that majority did not study it? Because I understand you received a copy of the MOU on July 7, but does that mean everybody else except the selection committee received a copy of the MOU on July 7?
The MOU, you mean the Memorandum of Agreement, the first one, JVA.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, the JVA, the Memorandum of Agreement, July 7, it's an attachment to our agenda, and that this is electronically sent to our email addresses the day before by the Secretariat. So if you open the email and you open the attachment, you will find the proposed joint venture agreement there. No? But reading through it, we felt it's not enough, because there are especially in the joint venture agreement, that there are so many provisions that for me were very, very ill-advised. It has since then been taken out, Memorandum of Understanding. But in the first JVA, there was even There was even a provision there that the city will protect and defend the project against all objection, bad publicity,
Mm.
so forth. Meaning to say we will protect and defend. So I go, what is this? We will stifle any protest. We will stop all negative publicity. In fairness, it's been taken out of the MOU, but or it's been rewarded at least. But see, even if you read through it, we felt that this is reading through the document because number one, it involves a very sensitive project. It is not the kind of we felt that it is not the kind of document that can easily be approved in one go, in one sitting, in one regular session. But I guess the rest did not feel that way. They felt that uh, everything is regular. There is the sense of regularity. And the steering committee has done its job properly, things like that. But slowly we're seeing that there are questionable actions, not necessarily intentional, maybe overlooked,
Right.
but still it is not proper. So we should do remedial measures.
Right. So, in effect, the MOU was emailed the day before and was up
Uh,
for.
the
Sorry,
the MOA joint venture agreement, the
the
first document
MOA. Okay,
was emailed a day before the session.
the
The
July
MOU,
7, the July 7 session.
yes. The
Yes.
MOU was submitted day of the session.
All right.
But
Okay.
there are two documents. The original one,
Yes, the
which
JVA.
which the mayor said, we'll take it back, we will change things, and then approve this new one. The new
Right.
one, with amendments, with changes, was received at past 8 the morning of the session. That's why Honorable Attorney Aramis said, we never got a copy.
Hmm.
What can we review?
Right. So, but then that's just a span of 1 day, right? 1 day difference between the first JVA and the amended MOU. That's
No,
correct?
1 week. 1 week.
1 week. 1 week.
Yeah, 1 week.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I understand what you mean that that's not enough time to make an informed decision. I understand that these things need to be deliberated by the body. Okay, so in relation to that, no, there are questions here, a couple of questions that talk about the term MOU, MOA. You explained it earlier. You said that you looked up MOU, MOA, and that it's not binding, but when it becomes specific and the details are threshed out, then it becomes legally binding. So the questions that I have here, first is, what is the parliamentary or legislative procedure on this? It seems like there seems to be an expression that this term, MOU, MOA, is not always used in the council.
Yes, MOUs, MOAs, these are titles to documents, to legal documents. Like I said, MOU is more like a document outlining the meeting of minds. MOA, you can interchange that with a JVA because it is already something that, something that puts in the context, in the body of the document, you already put obligations, commitments. It becomes more detailed. An MOU usually is not so detailed. But like Councilor Arbas said, it is not in the name, but
Yeah.
in the content.
Right.
If you call it an MOU, but it reads like an MOA, or it reads like a joint venture agreement, or it even reads like a PPP contract, then it's not an MOU. MOU is just your title, but the whole document is already a different animal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there are no MOUs, MOAs, all this deed of assignment, deed of donation, use of frac agreements. These are all legal documents that are part and parcel of the daily functions of government. When the mayor has to buy a property for a certain requirement of the city, we give you an authority to sign a deed of sale. If somebody donates a piece of property to the city, we give the mayor authority to sign a deed of donation. When the Presidencia was turned into a museum and the National Historical Commission was the one who funded its refurbishment, we signed a deed of use of frac with that national agency. So it is part of the daily work of the council to tackle legal documents. The only difference with this already is, like I said, this involves the PPP framework.
Right.
So there are things that we have to consider about this already. There is a PPP ordinance that has to be followed when getting into any kind of document involving a PPP project.
Right. Right. Okay. So I think we've exhausted that. You did say that the name is not controlling; it's the content that is actually.
And I'm not a lawyer. I'm only reiterating what I hear from my
No, but I
fellow.
agree. Yeah, that's right. And also, no, I think it was the term PPP contract actually clears up some of the confusion because for all intents and purposes, especially considering the process that it went through according to the 2021 PPP ordinance, it does seem like the PPP contract.
Yes.
So I think that simplifies the matter. Whether it's an MOU, MOA, JVA, I think the content is what tells us what it is. Okay, so moving on to the next question, we have another one. Now that environmentalists have given their statements, what are the chances that DENR or ECC will not give their approval? I think this is DENR, maybe PRA.
Well, what are the chances? It depends. If I wouldn't know how DNR will decide on an application for a ECC by the city. That's anybody's guess, no? Well, I'm smiling because, when you deal with other agencies, perceptions, there's so many. Well, I would want to believe that it will not pass the scrutiny of the DNR with regards to an ECC because, as already shown, we do have live corals.
Right.
The biodiversity of marine resources in that coastal area area is vast. No? Seagrass, corals, other things that, not only protect, but even propagate marine life. So if you're talking about environmental cost, it is one of the costs that is very hard to put a number on. Because how a square meter of corals, can anybody tell me how much fishes would have benefited in a square meter of corals? I don't know. We could be talking about 100 fishes, 1,000 fishes, 100,000 fishes, because corals provide protection, provide breeding grounds, and if you leave this untouched for generations, you will never be able to quantify the amount of fishes or other sea creatures that this coral has provided that kind of protection and environment for its propagation. I believe not even an environmentalist can tell you what is the number that a coral can provide. No? That's
Yes,
why,
understood. But I think maybe the counter to this, which is a valid point also, no, is that this development would actually, I mean, while it may not benefit some things, it will also benefit the intended beneficiaries, like the people of the community, Dumaguete City at large, etc., by creating jobs, also by ushering in development, ushering in probably potential investors, and just basically, creating a smart city here in the south to add to our tourist spots, and to add to, or to capitalize at least on what we already have, right? So maybe what we would like to ask now is, do you have the info about the project details? How will this smart city project make Dumaguete more data driven or intelligent or efficient? You know, maybe the benefits or effects that it can have on the citizens of Dumaguete, alternative means of livelihood, perhaps.
if unless I were Nostradamus or Madame Auring, who they claim can see the future, I cannot tell you what kind of benefits this so-called smart city project will bring to the people of Dumaguete. I cannot even tell you if there will be 2, 3, 4 years from now a financial crisis that will put chaos in our financial system, thereby all these projects, all these reclamation projects will be left behind by their proponents, and you will have empty swampland in the coast of Dumaguete. Is that a possibility? I don't know. Could be. I cannot tell you what will happen a year, 2 years from now. What I can tell you is that for the past few years, we have seen an influx of, I will call, medium to small scale businessmen who have invested in our beautiful city. You have seen development in our coastal areas from Looc to Bantayan. People groups that brought in their resources to number one, put up buildings, create jobs. Up to now, because their businesses are already running, they hired and maintain people of Dumaguete with current jobs. A lot of these people probably saw it beneficial for them to invest in Dumaguete because they invested on the beautiful coast we have. They saw it fit that the ambience we get now in Dumaguete, in this area, will give them substantial profits. So they came in. They already spent their money. They already did their hirings. They're currently employing so many X number of people. You destroyed that. I mean, you take away that from them now. You take away the ambience. You take away their view. You put something else there. Do their projections change? I guess it will. Will they have to downsize and let go some people? They might. Will they give up and move elsewhere? They could. So what I'm saying is, I will sell you something that is happening now. Maybe slowly, but it is happening. Construction around the city, I can point out so many. It is not massive construction, it's not a construction boom, but it's constant, it's sustainable, and it is happening. It is reality. Compare that to a promised dream. Something that supposedly will benefit us starting 5 years from now, if everything works, if nothing goes wrong. And I will rather put my money in the here and now than put it something that I don't know what comes about 5 years later.
All right.
I will invest in education for our children because that promises, that is a quantifiable promise that with better education, there is the probability of a better future for them. But those are easily quantifiable. I do not know if anybody can quantify the promises being said in the proposed project.
All right. But in terms of project details, are these available? Is there anything that has been presented in terms of maybe even just interconnectivity or, the infrastructure apart from what's already circulating in social media?
Nothing. Apart from the video presentation, nothing has been given to the council.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification and confirmation. Let's go back to the other questions. We have one from Noasco. Noasco asks, in respect, do you have plans or recommendations for possibility to push through the project? Maybe this is asking if you have any plans or recommendations to push through with the project.
No, and I don't think my recommendations will matter in as much as the recommendation from my fellow citizens of Dumaguete will matter. Meaning to say, I am not an environmentalist. I mean, I am not a professional I have not studied that field. I am not an architect. I'm not an engineer. I don't see anything now that will tell me now, if you do this, then I will support the project. No. convince the people of Dumaguete first.
Hmm.
Then I will support the project.
All right. There is another question, maybe related to that. This is from Zorik. He says, he or she says, is there a way that people of Dumaguete can stop the action of the council from moving forward pertaining to this project, since most of the pro-councilors always win every time they vote and seems always favor their interest and always contradicts the actual voice of the people of Dumaguete? So is there a way that Dumaguete can stop this?
I guess the only way is to make your voice heard, known to them. And hopefully, if enough voices are heard, if enough people comment, I'm not saying comment na, bashing like that. No, give your 2 cents worth on why you are not for it or why you are against it. After people, all of us councilors are still human beings, and we can only deny up to a point. When it is already obvious, then we will, even the ones who I believe are always pro, but I'm starting to feel, let's say I'm pro, but I'm starting to feel alone in this. Maybe I'm wrong. You can start out believing you are right, but if you start looking around and everybody else are telling you you are wrong, then maybe you start saying, maybe I am wrong and I should take their point of view. That's the
Right.
only way I can see it.
Well, as a follow-up to that, there's another question here that asks, if ever the voice of the citizens will not be heard by the city officials, is there any higher agency we can turn to ask for help regarding this matter?
Well, there are a lot, no? I believe yesterday or today, a resolution to take it in the Senate committee was passed by Senator Hontiveros. She filed a resolution that the appropriate Senate committee look into this matter. That's some form of help. If you can go straight to the DNR, let them know already of our objections. Even if there are people who believe this is already a done deal, for me, there's really no such thing as a done deal until you've exhausted every single avenue, opportunity to change hearts and minds. And I believe for as long as we remain alive, hearts and minds can always be persuaded one way or the other.
All right. So to ask another question posted here by Miles O, what do you think of the lawyers in the council who try to turn a blind eye on the legal processes?
I wouldn't go as much as saying that they're turning a blind eye. I don't know the reasons for each councilor has to defend to himself and to the constituents his vote. I wouldn't go to the extent of saying they're turning a blind eye. Maybe they just rather see some facts and give more weight to some facts than give weight to other kinds of facts. I do not prejudge anybody. No. In as much as I don't want to be prejudged also.
Correct. Right. So I guess coming from that, no, considering that if we just try to look at the matter objectively, we have a question here that says, considering the contract is questionable and even cited illegal in terms of process, if this project pushes through, what will you do?
Well, what will I do in terms of there is section, I believe it's section 34 of the PPP, of the PPP ordinance. Section 4 talks about disciplinary action. So it states here, violation of this code and the code of conduct insofar as elective city officials are concerned may constitute grounds for disciplinary action. I don't know if that means I should do any disciplinary action. There must be a body or a entity that if it sees that there were violations of this code, will subject people culpable to disciplinary action.
Mm.
And well, it's a whole paragraph, so well, there could be consequences. I don't know. I don't know if it has to be me.
Mm.
I guess the bureaucratic way of governance provides for consequences if any official goes beyond his sworn duties and responsibilities.
Right.
I don't know. Ombudsman. I don't wanna, because we are still trying to sway people, our colleagues, that hey, we might have overlooked this, or we might have, or the screening committee might have overlooked this. Maybe we should think about this and do remedial measures that will help us comply
Mm.
the letter. I never lose hope.
Right. And I think that's the good thing about what's happening now. We're exhausting what can be exhausted in terms of discussion, and also looking at the legalities and perhaps also just discourse. Here, there's a question here. It states, I think this has been touched on earlier, but perhaps needs just a little more clarification. It says, news is going around that our mayor is giving his so-called public consultations/talks. Is this on his own, meaning maybe on his own prerogative, or initiated by himself, or part of the city's rules for the public consultation?
Well, I believe it's his own initiative, a form of information drive by him. I wouldn't know if he will call it consultation, because like I said earlier, that is the responsibility of the city council to do public consultation. But the mayor, if he feels that it is part of his obligations to disseminate information, and he could. I just hope it's not public money being used for this activity. Well, first and foremost, is because they're the idea that the city will not spend a single centavo is what is being marketed, that this will not cost the city a single centavo. Now, if the city will have to spend money, budget money, to conduct information drive, then we are spending money for this project. Well, maybe he's doing it in his own initiative, using his own funds. I wouldn't know. I've not been invited.
Right, and I think that's also a welcome thing, because I believe we get to see both sides, and that's always important. And in fact, we continue to reach out also to the proponents, so that we could have a discussion in the learning event series. So this is a good thing, and I think hopefully this initiative is of the mayor's own. So we have a few more questions. Maybe I'll just extend for maybe 5 more minutes. We have one from Rue. I can't read the complete name, but she's asking, as the population was shortcut in this signing, is there also a legal option to shortcut the majority and go against this plan at a higher authority? From my experience over the last 2 weeks, it is my understanding that the majority of the population does not even understand and know that the smart city does not even involve one single building shown in all the computer-generated images, and that the billions are basically just for throwing stuff in the ocean. Do you really think that it should be made more clear to the population that we really have no idea and right to decide what would be finally built?
Yes, no. We all know when you marketing, you present beautiful pictures, but especially let's say real estate, when somebody's trying to sell you a condo unit, there are small letters there that say for announcement purposes only. Nothing that you see is a commitment of the project developer. And it applies also here, no? Nothing, well, in the Memorandum of Understanding, or even if there is a PPP, I don't think it already contains all the architectural details of all the kinds of building that will be put there. Remember, I don't know if you would remember. What I remember is that even the reclamation project there in the boulevard, it started out as basically for 8 volleyball courts, and then the design became something else. There was going to be an amphitheater or something. Then now the final design seems to be so much different from the first proposed design. So there's nothing on paper that will tell us what kind of a development this island, or the developer of this island is proposing.
Right.
I've never seen any development in anywhere in the Philippines that will mirror what was being shown in visual materials in the beginning, in the inception of the projects. No, there's so many differences always. Ano lang yan? Marketing tool.
Right. Right. And I guess this is where caution steps in. And I believe that, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to stop, pause, and think. And I think that that's an attitude that, maybe good when it involves something of this magnitude. Not to say that, you're against or for it or whatnot, but maybe just to even think a little bit more about it and the implications. So we have 3 more questions, 1 comment. I will just quickly go over. There's another one from, there's Girly Bernardes. She asked, what is your reaction that Senator Hontiveros has brought this up at the Senate and seeks investigation on the matter?
Well, I thank Senator Hontiveros, no, for giving Dumaguete importance. No, I thank Senator Hontiveros for bringing this up to the level of the Philippine Senate. I do hope that the leadership in the Philippine Senate takes this matter up. Maybe because everything the Senate anything the Senate takes up supposedly is for aid of legislation, and I believe our own congressman already made known that there is a proposed House bill with regards to development which will affect environment, things like that. I think it is a bill submitted by Representative former Senator Lauren Lagarda. And the way I know Lauren Lagarda from her programs is that she loves nature and the environment. So maybe that will be her proposed law will be a benefit for Mother Nature. So maybe the Senate can take this up in aid of legislation, because any House bill, once approved, goes to the Senate for
Right.
a same measure to be taken up by them. So I hope it is.
Correct.
Not only for Dumaguete, but for all cities, all coastal cities, municipalities, not only in the Philippines, but we're limited to the Philippines, in the Philippines. I hope.
Right. Yeah, I think, especially since I think the discussion in Dumaguete centers around these marine protected areas. For those who were here yesterday, that was what our speaker, Dr. Abisamis, talked about. So it's a good development. We have one question here from Miles Ong again. I think this talks about what transpired earlier in City Council. There have been reports that the mayor, some councilors, and barangay captains went to China in 2019. Did you get to join that trip? Or how was the group selected?
Okay. Apparently there was mayor together with some councilors and some business personalities went to Beijing. I was not part of that. Back in my first stint as councilor, there was also a trip to China wherein some councilors went. I believe, if I remember right, the mayor invited all councilors and all barangay captains of the city of Dumaguete. I did not go. I believe some other councilors, councilors Aviola at that time, he was still a city councilor. Councilor Alan was still a councilor. Councilor JV Imbo. I don't know about Councilor Chaco Sarabaria at that time, but we did not go. We did not go. There have been several trips. No, there was also a trip to Korea because to visit a sister city in Korea. That was already during my second term. Again, some councilors went. Vice Mayor Cordova did not go. I did not go.
Any comment on the selection process? From what I understand, that trip was actually a trip to see and then visit some tourist spots, so we could sort of work the same way in Dumaguete. I mean, for the benefit of city tourism also.
Yeah, well, I believe that the first trip, because I did not know so much about the second trip. No, the first trip, all the councilors were invited, but not everyone went. And it was basically, they went to different cities, saw how beautiful China cities have developed, things like that, no? What can be adopted, what can we learn? Kind of a learning experience, learning more of gathering ideas. When they came back, the councilors who went, they shared what they saw, things like that. But there was never any mention of a proposed project for our city because of that trip.
Right. That was clearly stated during council session naman earlier. All right. So finally, down to our last question: what can people from Manila do to stand with Dumaguete?
What does it mean? People in Manila generally, or people in Manila who have roots here in Dumaguete?
I think generally, if you're from Manila, you hear about what's going on in a small town, small university town. Dumaguete perhaps have visited already, and are interested in what's going on right now and feel the need to take a stand with. Is there anything? Is there anything that other Filipinos can do?
Well, first and foremost, pray for all of us here in Dumaguete. Pray for our leadership that we come out with the best, the best for the people of Dumaguete. Pray for Mother Nature. And if people are a soldier for the environment anywhere in the world or in Metro Manila, if they want to sign petitions out there to help their voices be heard, that people
Right.
want because generally speaking, I heard somewhere that it is what we do here in Dumaguete does not only affect Dumaguete, it can have ripple effects elsewhere, Cebu, Bohol. That's the beauty of the sea.
Right.
The sea has no boundaries. The fish are not subjected to boundaries. You cannot tell a turtle you can only go to Dumaguete, don't go to Bohol, don't go to Cebu. No. There is freedom in the sea. That's the beauty of the sea. And we learn so much from what the sea shows us.
Right.
What-
So for those in Manila or elsewhere, not from Dumaguete, you can pray for Dumaguete, pray for unity of mind, and pray for wisdom among the leaders, and hopefully a resolution. Good discourse also.
Just like I believe the people of Dumaguete pray for the leaderships, the people in government in Metro Manila, whether they're at Manila City Hall or Malacanang Palace, we pray for each other.
Right, right.
We are a community of saints, like they say.
Right. So we're down to our last comment before we end. It's not a question. I can't read the name, but it says here, no question. However, I am a guest of this great city since 2005 and had the pleasure to meet Mayor Perdices, a real people's mayor, a few times, and had a great time during a party I organized in 2007. I am extremely happy to see that his legacy gets carried on by Sir Tincho Perdices. He is a voice of reason, and I am sure many want to see him soon in a higher position.
Thank you for the vote of confidence. But I'd like to thank that individual. Whatever my dad did for the city of Dumaguete, he would have never been able to accomplish without the cooperation and the support of the people of Dumaguete themselves. No? The Perdices family, even my dad, if he were alive today, he will not claim anything that he has accomplished anything, because he has accomplished things things were accomplished because of the people, not only the people around him, but the people in general. That's how things are done, and that's how proper things should be done.
Right. So thank you, Rudy. I see the name now, Rudy. Okay, and with that, Councilor Perdices, any last words?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts and arguments on these matters. No, hopefully, because I always think that even if things seem bad, God always has something good behind everything. Though it seems that there is darkness in Dumaguete now because of people, literally fighting each other through words.
Mm.
But I believe the good thing I see in this is the participation today of so many people on
Right.
this issue. And I hope and pray, whether in this administration, in the next, or whatever other administration, this involvement of the people to the city, to its officials, to its government remains.
Right.
This issue can be resolved someday in the future, but there may be other issues, maybe smaller issues. But what I like to see as the good in all of this is that it has awoken a lot of people that, hey, I have a voice. And if I don't let my voice be heard now, then I will always forever suffer whatever consequences.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for those words. And in relation to that, we continue to pray that the citizens of Dumaguete would be quick to listen and slow to speak. Hopefully, have enough time to process. And I agree that it's something so good to see the level of engagement of the citizens, no? And I guess it just goes to show that, you know, if you really care enough and you have the tools, you have the information that you need, you will be able to participate. So we appreciate all of that. And with that, we will be ending our session tonight. On
Yes.
behalf of the Dumaguete City Host Lions Club International and Rotary Club South, we thank everyone for joining us. We had a lot of questions, a lot of new information. We continue to invite also the proponents. We hope to get the other side of the story so that we would be able to be better informed also. Now, we have a few announcements. Yes?
Thank you very much, Attorney Zara, and more power to this learning event series. No? Yeah, it's a
Thank you.
very beautiful platform where we can exchange ideas. Thank
Right,
you.
and thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, Councilor.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so some announcements. We have another Learning Event Series 3.0 tomorrow. Stay tuned for that, same time, and this will be on the legal dimensions of the Dumaguete Reclamation Project by Attorney Golda S. Benjamin, Dumaguete resident. She will explain the legal dimensions and go into detail. If you have questions on that, if you have additional questions from what you've learned tonight, you can go to the Facebook page of Learning Event Series. You can like it. You can send in your questions there. So that's it for this evening, and we hope to continue to see you for the rest of the events. This will run until August. Thank you and good evening.